I deleted social media 3 years ago, and at first my fingers itched to go back to doing this, scrolling. But instead of giving in, I found myself turning to an old hobby of mine that I had traded for screen time, reading. The books I discovered, and rediscovered in some cases, completely changed the way that I think. So if you've ever wanted to break free from the algorithm, here are the books that kept me from going back. Hello everyone, my name is Jillian. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy and grateful to have you here. If you're new, my niche is basically talking about why we need to get off social media and posting videos that inspire you to do that, because I personally found so much joy and freedom and identity since deleting social media 3 years ago. So if that interests you, go ahead and like this video and subscribe. It really helps me out, and it helps me help you out as well. So in case you haven't got the memo, I'm basically going to be talking today about all the books, well, not all the books that I've read since I deleted social media. Otherwise, I would be lying, because a lot of the books I've read have been stinkers. But I'm gonna be talking about the ones that I feel have really changed my life in one way or another. And I feel like if you're looking to minimize your screen time or delete social media altogether, these are gonna be the books that are going to motivate you to do that. So without further ado, let's just jump into the video. So I'm gonna be talking about these books in no particular order, just the order that they happen to be in this pile in on my bed. The first book that I have is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen one of the movie adaptations. There's been about 1 million. The most popular, I would say, is probably the Greta Gerwig adaptation from 2019 with Timothée Chalamet, Florence Pugh. I personally am currently reading this book right now. To me, this book is something that every young woman needs to read, and just the lessons within this book I feel like are enough to change the way you think and get you off social media and to teach you what it really means to be a woman. This is going to be a game changer. And comment down below what March sister you most recognize yourself in. Me personally, I am a Joe. Next is Harry Potter. Now before you click off this video because you're like, oh my god, why is she recommending the most basic books ever? Just hear me out. I tried to read these books so many times growing up and I could never do it because I'd watched the movies too many times, whatever. Just before Christmas this past year, I randomly decided to just give it another go. I finished this series in a month, including Cursed Child. The reason I'm recommending these books is because if you just pick them up at the right time and you have the right image in your head of like the characters, and you can like separate these from the movies. Like I had to create my own cast of characters in my head for this. But the minute you can do that, I feel like it's just such a magical world, and it's written so well and it just feels so real that literally all I wanted to do was read. And I literally just disappeared somewhere else. It was one of those reading experiences where I would be reading and I would close the book and then I would like forget where I was. Highly recommend. Comment down below your house. I'm a Ravenclaw. Next is a book that I read about a year ago. Well, it's a duology, and that is Divine Rivals. I'm sure you guys have probably heard about this duology a lot. I think it was pretty popular. It takes place during what can be assumed to be World War I, except the causes is different. So like there's gods and there's a magic system in this world, sort of. It's about Iris and Roman, and there's a really strong Lois Lane, Clark Kent energy going on between the two of them. They are both reporters. They're rivals, obviously, because they're working at the same paper and competing basically for like the top spot. And basically Iris has this typewriter and she writes letters on it to her brother who's off fighting in the war, but he never receives her letters. I think they get sent back to her every time. I don't know. So she started, just for comfort, writing them and putting them in her closet. Well, what she doesn't know, and what she comes to find out, is that the letters are going somewhere because the typewriter is magic, I think, and she doesn't know that they're going to Roman, and he's getting her letters and reading them. You're never gonna want to pick up your phone again, because this is another one of those books where I just could not put it down. I can't say the same for the sequel, but I could not put this one down. The next book is a little different from the ones I've talked about so far, and that is Play It As It Lays by Joan Didion. This is a fictional story about a woman who is living in Hollywood, and it's just about all of her struggles as a woman, and it has a lot of existentialist themes to it. Themes of death and dread and what if this and what if not that. And I feel like when I was reading this, I read this for a class that I was taking last summer, an existentialist class, but it was really good and it made me think a lot about my life and what I have control over and what I don't, and how I need to alter my approach to certain things. So I feel like this one is one of those that's gonna really change the way you think, and therefore make you realize that social media is one of those things that is affecting a lot more than you realize about your mental health and the way you view yourself in the world, and you have control over that. Next! This is, I think, one of the first books that I read when I deleted social media, and there is a very clear and evident reason that I read this book. I was a Harry Styles stan, and the movie adaptation of this book was coming out, and I've just deleted social media, so I was still in fangirl culture. But when I actually read this book, the furthest thing from my mind was Harry Styles. This book is so beautiful, written so well, another one that just sucked me into the story. It is about a police officer in London in like the 1950s, and he's married to Marion, who's a teacher, but the whole time he is having an affair with another man, and this is a time when being gay was illegal, like literally illegal. And that's crazy. But the story is just so beautiful. The characters are so real and raw, and it takes place in a beach town in Brighton. I was reading it at the beach. I annotated the heck out of it, which now I'm so curious. I kind of want to go back through. Next is a book that I have talked about already on this channel a couple times, and I have had several people tell me they've read it, and that just makes me so happy because this is probably the #1 book out of all the ones I'm gonna talk about that like actually changed my life. That is Midnight Library by Matt Haig. A woman tries to take her own life and she ends up in limbo in a library, and every single book is her life if she had just made one different decision. So when I read this, I was at a place where I was comparing myself a lot to other people and feeling really stuck and really behind. Just reading this book really changed my perspective on comparison, and it really helped me to see that my life is my life and it is like this for a reason, and every choice that I have made has been for my greatest good, whether I originally thought so or not. Looking at this alongside social media, I feel like social media literally is just a festering ground for comparison and for self-hatred and for feeling like your life is literally nothing compared to someone else's. This will change your perspective so much, and almost maybe to the point where you're never gonna wanna get back on your phone, because you're gonna realize that your life is special and it's sacred, and it doesn't matter what anyone else's looks like, because yours is yours, and that's so beautiful. So this next book is one that is part of a series, and I have read this book pretty sure every year since I read it the first time. That is Shatter. So it's a dystopian novel. The world is basically in shambles. We have our main character. Her name is Juliet, and she has been in basically a mental institution for like 200, 300 something days now because she has a fatal touch. If she touches you, you die. And the book basically starts where she gets a roommate, and it's a boy. And we go from there. This series is so good. I know that it's not everyone's cup of tea, but for me, reading this is literally the book series that got me back into reading. And that was before I even deleted social media. Like, I don't even remember why I got this book series, why I decided to pick it up, but I'm so glad that I did, because it literally made me feel like I was 13 again and reading like crazy. Just swallowing books whole. I loved it. The characters are so great. The romance is so good. The author, Terry Moffey, is coming out with another one in like a month or something, and I'm so excited. It's so reminiscent of like The Selection and The Hunger Games and Divergent and just that era of reading. So the next book is actually another classic, and this is the only one that I've actually ever really enjoyed, and I gave it 5 freaking stars. Jane Eyre. I mean, hello? I think the reason that I loved this book so much is that it was just so reminiscent of a time that was arguably simpler. And I say arguably simpler because clearly it wasn't. This takes place in like the 1800s. That was simple for nobody but men. And maybe not even them, because people were dirty and sick all the time. I say simpler because there's no technology, no phones, none of that nastiness. And I just, as I was reading this, like I could just picture laying in a field, listening to the birds chirping. Plus, Jane is the best female character I think I've ever read about. She is honestly so sassy, so sarcastic, so strong. It's so interesting to watch her lose that side of herself, to have that side of herself warped by society and society's expectations of women. I can't recommend this enough. Like I said, I gave this 5 stars and I freaking hate classics. So the next book is one that I'm reading right now, and I feel like this has the same kind of energy as Harry Potter, Percy Jackson. I think that reading books that are reminiscent of your childhood is a for sure way to be like, yeah, never mind, I don't need my phone today. I don't need to be on social media ever again. Because these just take me personally back to being a kid and not having that. And the only technology I have is my Nintendo DS, but even then I'd rather read than play that. I'd rather go outside with my friends than be on that. And I just miss that era of life so much, and I honestly can't wait to have children of my own to give them a life like that, because I feel like it's such a fleeting thing and it's so sad. And these are just books that, oh, they just bring that back. Something innocent and just easy, and a world that you can just disappear into. I think that's what everybody needs right now, so that's why I'm recommending this whole series, including The Lost Hero. Like, let's go all the way through with Jason and Piper, come on. My next book is another one that a lot of you have probably heard a ton about, but I'm gonna sell you on it today. That is My Year of Rest and Relaxation. This is basically about a super rich girl who uses her trust fund to take a year of rest and relaxation. She basically gets a bunch of pills, like sleeping pills, and takes them all. So she's like Sleeping Beauty. She like sleeps for a year straight. And when she's awake, like she obviously is awake for some of it, but basically the whole novel is just that. Like, it's just her being depressed and sad and taking pills and being mean to her friend. That sounds boring, I know. A lot of people have struggled to get into this. I don't know how I managed to get into this, but I think the beauty in this and why I'm recommending it, it's like the ending of this novel is reason enough to read it. The ending is so powerful. All I can say is that this is the type of story that really makes you look at yourself and your own life and how you're maybe letting your own fear get in the way of everything else. And really that's all I can say, is that social media is a fear-mongering device, and this book is gonna make you look at that and look at what you're afraid of and realize there's no point in being afraid of it at all. So my next book is a part of another series, and that is the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silver, but I'm going to be talking specifically about Heartless today. So this is a series of interconnected standalones, and they all take place in the country, on a ranch. It's cowboys, it's rodeos, it's, you know, driving pickup trucks and being out in the field and all that fun stuff, y'all. Like I said, a series of interconnected standalones. It's 3 brothers and like 2 of their best friends, because there's 5 books and each book is a different trope. So the first book is Enemies to Lovers. This one is my personal favorite. This is single dad trope. This is one of my book boyfriends, Cade Eaton. The next book is Friends to Lovers. Then there's like Single Mom, I think. And then there's Fake Dating. They're all so good. And the reason I'm putting them on here is, again, because any book that the world building is so strong and it takes place in a setting that is very much just nature and the outdoors, it just, I don't know, it makes me want to go outside and touch some grass and be in the sun and wear a pretty dress and frolic around and ride a horse or something. Like, the last thing I want is to be rotting in my bed when I'm reading a book like this. My next book is a book that inspired one of my, well, not one of, my favorite movie of all time. That is Coraline by Neil Gaiman. The reason that I'm recommending this book is because I feel like the moral of the story comes across a lot better in the book, and that is the danger in not growing up. Basically, I wrote a whole research paper on this book, y'all. The other mother represents that danger in not growing up and staying stuck in childhood forever, and she therefore kind of acts like the motivation for Coraline to grow up and realize that she is ready to do that and not stay a child forever. And I feel like looking at my generation, Gen Z, we are very immature for our age. We are very immature in the dating world. We're very immature in the workforce. We don't want to work. We want to stay at home with our parents. Clearly there are other reasons for that as well, like the economy and how expensive it is. I think that this book will really get through, maybe, and help you to see that growing up is scary, yes, but it has to be done. And it can be so beautiful and so exciting if you let it be. So my next book is also part of a series, and it is the last book in the series. That is the Throne of Glass series. This is Kingdom of Ash. It's massive. This was my favorite book in the entire series. This book series is literally like a masterclass in fantasy. I will say that everything after the second book, Crown of Midnight, was a drag for me to get through, but I'm still recommending it because it was all worth it to get to this book right here. This book, so epic. It was just one of those ones, again, where I just disappeared into it. I did not want to be on my phone. I did not want to watch TV. I just wanted to read, and I love books that do that. Like, I love books that do that. And honestly, I would reread the whole series again just to get to this one. The characters, oh, the characters. They feel so real. And it was just so easy for me to picture them in my head and to see everything that was going on. And just the war at the end, like it was like Lord of the Rings type epic, okay? If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, this book is so good. It is super dark academia vibes, and it's like written in scenes, not chapters. On the day Oliver Marks is released from jail, the man who put him there is waiting at the door. Detective Colburn wants to know the truth, and after 10 years, Oliver is finally ready to tell it. A decade ago, Oliver is one of 7 young Shakespearean actors at Delacour Classical Conservatory, a place of keen ambition and fierce competition. In this secluded world of firelight and leather-bound books, Oliver and his friends play the same roles on stage and off: hero, villain, tyrant, temptress, ingenue, extra. But in their 4th and final year, good-natured rivalries turn ugly, and on opening night, real violence invades the students' world of make-believe. In the morning, the 4th years find themselves facing their very own tragedy and their greatest acting challenge yet, convincing the police, each other, and themselves that they are innocent. One of their friends dies. I can't remember who did it, how it happened, but I remember this was good. And I remember that I pictured Andrew Garfield as Oliver, as the main character. You know, there's romance, there's murder, there's mystery, there's intrigue. It's very dark academia. And I've seen a lot of people compare this to The Secret History, which I have not read yet, but it's in my TBR. This next book is likely not going to be for everybody, but I'm going to recommend it anyway because it was one of the books that kept me off of social media. That is The Shack. This, I mean, all the annotations, you guys. This is a religious story. It is a Christian story. It is about a man who goes on vacation with his family. His daughter is kidnapped and brutally murdered. Years later, he goes back to the shack where her murder took place, and he spends a weekend there amongst God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. And they all come to him in the form of like human people. And it is honestly a book that I would recommend to anybody who dislikes the church or has hesitancies or any form of religious trauma. I don't know, because to me, this is a representation of how I view God, and it is not a god that is part of established religion and the established church and all that comes with that. And I just thought that this story was so inspirational and beautiful. It filled me with gratitude for my own life, especially the smallest things within it, which I feel like social media makes you want to hate those things. And it was just really strong, powerful, emotional read. So even if you're not religious, I feel like this would still have the same effect for you. So my last 3 books, unsurprisingly, are all romances. So let's go. Twisted Games. There's probably nobody who hasn't read these books yet, but this is the Twisted series by Anna Huang. They're literally making a Netflix adaptation. I'm so excited. It's another book series of interconnected standalones, all very tropey. This was my personal favorite. It's about Bridget, who is like the queen or the future queen of some kingdom, and her bodyguard Reese. They fall in love and they have to secretly date. Anyway, I'm putting these books in here because they were another book series that I just literally could not put down, and I just flew through them and literally had like 0 minutes of screen time on my phone a day. So my next book is also part of a series, and it's also a show. Outlander! Highly recommend, okay? In case you don't know what this is about, it takes place right after World War II. Our main character, Claire, is a World War II nurse. Her and her husband, who were newly married, got separated because of the war. Now they're back together. They go to Scotland on a second honeymoon, and while they're there, Claire ends up in this like stone circle one day, and she touches one of the stones, and it takes her back in time to 1700s Scotland, and she gets stuck there. And there's political intrigue, there's romance, there's hot Scottish men. That's all I'm gonna say. Again, this series made me want to go frolic and get my feet in the grass, so that's why I'm recommending it. And lastly, there's really no point in me recommending this one because everybody and their mother has read it probably, ACOTAR, but I had to save the best for last. I had to. This is my favorite book series of all time. I've annotated the heck out of it. I think I've read the entire series like 5 times, and I read it for the first time I think in like 2021. And I'm just patiently waiting for the next book to come out. This book series made me want to go frolic. It healed something, like a deep, deep wound inside of me. I didn't want to do anything else but read it. Like, I didn't even want to go out with my friends. I just wanted to read it, and I want to read it all the time. And I constantly have to tell myself, no, you can't keep reading that over and over again. So, ACOTAR. And if you've already read it, read it again. So that is the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope that one of these books sounds good to you guys and that you give it a try. If you do, comment down below when you finish what your thoughts are. And now I have to go put all these books away. Yay for me, but thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys so much. I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to disconnect for a while. Love you guys. Bye.